have to invest in yourself.
Yeah.
You have to. If you don't, you're getting left behind. I've become more of a student with all the school I've been through in the last, 5 years than I have in the rest of my life. I've spent more time devoted to making myself and the others around me better. And when you do that, it's a military term. It's a force multiplier. But I 100% agree with what you said and that Navy SEAL said is it does equal love, and it's unconditional love.
Welcome to the In the Arena podcast. My name is Jared Miguez, a co-host on this podcast that brings you the inspiring stories of our clients who are leaders and innovators across different industries in Southeast Louisiana. They are visionary entrepreneurs, savvy real estate professionals, media creators, military business owners, and community champions. And we are going to showcase the remarkable achievements and share their personal stories. Tune in for insightful conversations, valuable lessons, and motivational stories that are going to reveal their secrets to success and offer you insights to help you on your own path. Welcome to In the Arena podcast.
All right, well, let's get started. Military Pipeline Podcast. Here we are, Pipeline Podcast, Military to Business. I'm Dominic Luke. We got Jared Miguez. Excited to have here a good friend of mine, Dr. Chip Curtis. Welcome to the podcast.
I'm
Why
excited
don't you introduce yourself, tell us who you are, what branch of the military you served in, and what it is that you do now.
Okay. Chip Curtis. The branch of the military I was in was really Army, mostly through the Guard. And so Army National Guard. My active duty time was mostly deployments. And currently, I'm a chiropractor. I run a multidisciplinary holistic healthcare facility, which is a lot of big words, but that means putting all the best tools in regenerative medicine, physical medicine, all together, physical therapy, chiropractic, massage, and using all of those tools, including regenerative medicine. I have a fellowship in stem cell therapy.
Cool.
And I combine all that stuff to help people get better. And we do that by helping you avoid surgery and get off of medications. That's kind of my why behind it. Cool. And that's what I do.
Very
Cool.
good.
Very good.
I'm excited to be on this podcast because I've never done one before.
Well, it's going to be a fun first run at it. So we talked a second ago. I just want to say thank you for your service. I humbly sit here with you guys knowing that y'all put in some time and did some things that most people aren't willing to do. So I appreciate you for that. And I'm excited to hear how you applied your experience as a kid and in the military to what you're doing now. So let's lay the foundation and talk about who you were as a kid and kind of what inspired you to join the military.
Oh, man. That goes deep.
Yeah.
We don't have to go too deep.
As deep as you want, buddy.
No, I was 16. I was 16 when I joined. Inspiration.
16. Every time
yeah.
I meet somebody, it's like they get in there younger. I mean, 16 years old.
Well, my parents had to sign.
Okay.
I spent most of my senior year 16 years old, so I turned 17 about halfway through, and I went off to basic training at 17 years old. But my inspiration was the guys that came before me, starting with my grandfather. He was a World War II vet. And, you listen to some of the people today and the deployments that we've been through, but I always think back to those guys. They were gone for 4 years.
Wow. Yeah.
And the most they could do was write a letter and have to wait weeks or months to hear from someone from home. Care packages? What was that?
Yeah,
They didn't have it. So, our forefathers, and growing up as a kid, I read a lot of books about the guys that went to Vietnam and what they endured, and not only what they had to endure on the battlefield, but to come back home and have their own country turn their backs on them, spit on them, call them baby killers, things like that. So for me, I wanted to be part of change, but the other part of it was my dad looking at me when I was 16, and he said, "How you going to pay for college?" I was like,
I don't know.
I don't know. I was just born like a little while ago.
Yeah, right.
So what do you want me to say?
Right.
I definitely didn't have it figured out. I had some inspiration from my uncle who encouraged me to go into aviation.
Cool.
And, between those guys, I went and saw the recruiter. So after talking to the recruiter. If the recruiter would have had it his way, I'd have went to the infantry.
Yeah.
And my dad was smart enough to say, well, we're not signing if you can't get this particular slot. So I was really interested in aviation, and I started out as a Huey mechanic. And then was fortunate enough to go to flight school down the road.
Oh, very cool. What'd you fly?
Blackhawks. I flew Blackhawks for 10 years.
Wow. Very cool. I have a friend of mine out that I went to law school with who flew Blackhawks too. He has some really cool stories.
Yeah.
Really cool stories. So, and it's funny. We've, and I guess it's not funny. It's getting to be a consistent theme that there's some sort of legacy play in most of the people's decisions to go to the military.
Yeah.
Most people grew up being around it, seeing it, being inspired by it, and then having some family member that they want to, fill their shoes or try to honor their service too by joining as well. It's very cool.
So 16, 17 years old, you join the military, become a Huey mechanic. How long did you do that?
Well, really, it was 10 years. But, there were some steps along the way because my ultimate goal was to become a pilot.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
you knew that going in? You joined wanting to become a pilot?
Yeah.
Or you joined, said, I'm just going, whatever I get,
well,
I get?
at 16 years old, I could speak for myself and say I really didn't have a plan. I knew what my interests were. And then there were some I didn't know, but I had some people around me that were encouraging me. And I think it would be smart for any young person not knowing where they want to be from a future point of view to actually use the military as at least a plan B. So that's kind of how I thought about it from the beginning is like if I could be a pilot, hey, that would be cool. Plus it's a skill, that you could use later on in life. And by the way, you get paid while you're doing it. So, I'm out there getting to fly some pretty cool missions and I'm like, I'm getting paid to do this shit.
Yeah.
This is good.
I know the feeling. That's why I became a PJ.
Right.
To get paid to do cool shit.
Yeah, legacy play and wanting to blow shit up and jump out of helicopters or fly helicopters is usually what most of the people say whenever they get on here. It's just want to do cool shit.
Yeah.
But on the legacy part, I definitely agree with you because I've seen the same thing. And I believe that it's kind of that servant mentality, And, if the leaders of the family have that mentality, the kids are generally going to want to follow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as you went through your Huey mechanic career, right? You did that for 10 years, right? You were still a baby, 17 years old. You're still a young buck at that point.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out how to be in the military, right? And so what were some challenges that you maybe experienced or some lessons learned at just Huey mechanic era that you had to work through?
Oh man, there's so many. The ones that come to mind are patience, persistence, work ethic. Either the details matter too, but you go to basic training and you go to AIT, advanced individual training, and you come back and you're like, all right, I'm ready to work on helicopters and get back to the unit, and the helicopters are sitting out on the flight line, and I'm like, all right, this is cool. We're going to get to do it, right? I'm like, hey, Sarge, when are we going to get to work on those helicopters? He's like, you ain't touching them helicopters, boy. I'm like, what do you mean? Curtis, come over here, sweep the floor. I'm like, this is bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So over time, it's hard for you to understand that as a kid. You're the newbie. You got to start at the bottom of the rung, and you've got to earn respect and trust. The Guard's a little bit different than active duty because you have older full-timers that are there, and they see their birds as like their baby, and they're not going to let some young punk like me come on and screw things up.
Yeah.
So in retrospect, I get it. Did they communicate that very well? No, not at all. And as a young kid who's got no perspective, it can be extremely frustrating. And I see kids wanting to get out of the military because of it. So I just saw it as a challenge. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to fix this shit myself. And my plan was to go to flight school. It took me 10 years to get there.
Wow. So you were 27 years old when you were in flight school.
Yeah. I had to get enough credits in college to apply for OCS, get into OCS, go through OCS, graduate OCS, go to the officer basic course. That was a 6-month course in and of itself.
And you did that all in the Guard.
Yep.
Wow. So you were a full-time student, weekend warrior, going and do your Guard reserve thing.
Right.
Staying in school. Where'd you go to college?
LSU.
LSU.
Yeah.
So you were just traveling back and forth to Alexandria on the weekends to get credits to...
Yeah, I wanted to go to federal OCS because it was 16 weeks, get her done. Yeah, you're hell on earth, but, it's done in a few months. Where the state program, and, it boils down to funding and stuff like that. I didn't want to do the state program, but the state program's a year long. Wow. It's a year-long course of misery. Mm-hmm. We started with 140-something people and graduated 36.
Wow.
The attrition rate was pretty
strong.
That
was OCS school?
Mm-hmm. OCS, yeah.
Really?
It was no joke. And from my point of view, that was tougher than going to the federal route. Just, you'd have to get into that mindset, and they were hardcore. And then now back into the civilian world, and my wife will still talk about it today. She could tell when drill weekend was coming up. It was like my disposition might have turned a little sour.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But I watched them physically. There were guys that you could tell weren't cut out for leadership. And, woe be it if you were one of those guys. The TAC officers would zero in on them.
They saw them. They knew they were.
And I watched this guy who was a physical specimen. I mean, they rode him until he broke, and the dude was tough.
Yeah. So was it mentally challenging, or the difficult was the physical side of it?
All the above. Yeah, really. And the physical part came easy for me, and oddly enough, so did the mental part. The thing I always lacked that I would encourage anyone, especially a young person, to start earlier with was I've never had a mentor. Especially like from an official point of view, having someone to help guide you and lead you. And of course, I've had people throughout my life here and there, but I really got into that space much later in life. I call myself a late bloomer.
Yeah. At least you bloomed.
Yeah.
Right on.
All right, so let's fast forward then. Go through OCS, graduate college. You're now heading to aviation school. How long is that?
A year.
A year?
Yeah.
And were you able to choose the type of helicopter you wanted to fly, or did you just go? How does that work?
In the active duty, it really comes to how you do in school and your ranking. If you're going through one of the academies, it's the same thing. So like the highest level grads get their first choices. But at the end of the day, if the Army needs Apache pilots at that time, you're going to be an Apache pilot.
Yeah.
So Uncle Sam ultimately has the say. In the Guard or Reserve, it's really respective to the unit that you're in. So the unit, the state actually puts the money up, and they pay for you to go to school. And it was kind of cool because the colonel that was in charge at the time, Louisiana paid for me to go, but I was about to graduate from flight school, and I got a scholarship offer to go to grad school, but it was in Georgia. So I called him up. I'm like, hey, Colonel, I'm about to graduate, and I know you paid for me to be here, and but I'm asking if you'll release me. I'm going to go to Atlanta, go to school. And I said, I promise I will come back and fulfill my commitment to you in the Louisiana Guard, and I did. So
you went to grad school in Atlanta?
Right.
Huh. I didn't know that.
That was some divine intervention right there, because I was at the end of flight school, and I honestly wasn't sure what I was going to do, because I knew my plan A was I was really interested in physical therapy, but I really screwed up my first couple of years of college. So my GPA wasn't as good as it needed to be. At the time you needed like a 3.5, and I was close to a 3.2 or a 3.0 or something like that. And I was looking to maybe go to PT school through the military. But I was already on the aviation path, so that bridge was already crossed. And I was like, well, I'll get my master's and exercise phys, work to get my grades up, and then go apply. And I got a phone call, like out of nowhere. and I was a month away from graduating, not knowing what I was going to do. And it was a coach. So it turns out I quit playing football in college, and then I started playing rugby at LSU, and I wound up being a good rugby player. So I played for the Army team, the Combined Service team, and then wound up playing for the U.S. team. So in the rugby world, I was already a known commodity, but I get this phone call out of the blue, and it's a rugby coach at Life University.
In Georgia.
Yep. And he says, I want you to come for a visit. I was like, well, okay. I don't have any other plans.
Yeah.
Sounds good to me. So I went up there. It's this beautiful campus. And I'm like, do you guys have a master's program? He said, yep. I'm like, you got exercise phys? He's like, yep. The property next door was Dobbins Air Reserve Base. And they have a Blackhawk unit, a guard Blackhawk unit. I finished touring the campus. I sat down with the coach. I said, well, what's the deal? He said, full scholarship. I said, deal. I drove next door. I said, you guys need a Blackhawk pilot? He said, matter of fact, we do. I said, when do I start?
I'm Chip Curtis. I'm going to be next door playing rugby.
Yes.
And I'm a pilot.
I've seen many divine intervention moments in my life, but that's probably one of the strongest.
Well, we talk about this a lot too, and you might luck. People assume it's luck. It's just you put yourself in the right place at the right time and put in the work to find opportunities when they present themselves.
Amen.
That's the bottom line. That's what it sounds like to me.
I 100% agree with you on that. Yeah. You work to put yourself in the right spot. You put the right energy out there. And what happens is it starts happening for you.
Sure. So tell us at that point where you had gone through your pipeline and what Dom has talked to me about in the past is your pipeline of from basic training to your job in the military, flying Blackhawks. Was that the point in time where you were actually able to do your job and fly Blackhawks at that point?
Yeah. And that was some of the coolest flying I got to do too, because their training grounds was the Smoky Mountains, low level in the mountains, and had a lot of fun doing that.
So what is the main function of a Black Hawk pilot in the military?
Really troop transport for the most part. And that was the majority of our missions in Iraq, spent a year over there. We were in charge of flying the ambassador, so my company, we flew the ambassador and all the high-level officials, and then if they didn't have any of that on the schedule, it was troop transport. Gotcha. After that, air assault is, of course, one of the primary missions for the Black Hawk too.
And how many people are on the helicopter with you, or you're a part of your team?
Well, you have 2 pilots, 2 crew chief door gunners, and then you can generally fit 14, but if you pull the seats out, you can pack as many people in there as you can fit, which is what we did for Katrina.
So you can put 14 people in a helicopter?
Well, in the back of a Black Hawk, we've had 30.
Cool.
I mean, they were stuffed in there. And
how long did it take that thing to get off the ground?
it's powerful.
Yeah, that's badass.
I would love to take you for a ride.
You still fly?
Yeah, do you still fly?
I can, but I don't.
Yeah.
I haven't in a while. I can fly some fixed wing, that kind of stuff, but I haven't flown in years.
That's pretty badass.
Yeah, are you able to train, certify pilots?
While I was in flight school, I got my commercial rotary instrument rating, so technically I could work as a commercial pilot. Like I've got friends that work for Chevron or, PHI,
Flying people
offshore, that
yeah.
kind of stuff. Yeah, I mean, I'd have to go back and shake the rust off, of course.
Yeah,
sure.
Go ahead.
No, so I was going to ask, so that's an interesting career, right? 16 years old, Huey mechanic, graduate college, scholarship, USA rugby team, helicopter. Dude, that 20 years of your life resume is just really interesting. What'd you learn? There's a lot of lessons learned there, right? And
at this point, for your time in college, how many years was the master's program?
Well, I started the master's and then I flipped into the DC program. So I'm a doctor of chiropractic, and that program is 4 years.
So you were
I spent 4.5 years in Atlanta, outside of Atlanta, Marietta, Georgia.
And you're flying Blackhawks the whole time you're there.
Yep.
While
That
in
was my
school.
part-time job.
Yeah.
So
While in school,
Yeah.
trying to become a doctor.
school to become a doctor, you're basically about 32 hours, 34 hours a week in class time. So that doesn't include study time. I was a personal trainer, so I had part-time work wherever I could do it. You know, I had a guy down the road. He was like, "You make your schedule," because I was a personal trainer through college. I did that for 12 years, and then the flying was the other part-time job, but my other job was rugby because being on scholarship, we practiced 4 days a week, lifting sessions. So, when I sat back and did the math, literally, 80, 100-hour week was regular. But for me, it never seemed like it because I was always in an activity.
Yeah.
And I've learned that, movement, that's a place where I resonate. Like, I do better in that environment. Like, put me behind a computer.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
Yeah. No, I agree with
Motion
that.
is the lotion. That's for sure.
So what? And then you said you ultimately came back to Louisiana, and you how much time did you spend at the Guard in Louisiana?
Well, in total, it was 20 years.
Wow.
But, 4.5 of that was with the Georgia Guard.
Gotcha. And then, so what year was it that you came back to Louisiana after being in Georgia?
That was 2000.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Right before Katrina.
yeah, let's see.
No, Katrina was 05.
Come back in 2000, got started in practice, and then, worked for a friend of mine out of Slidell for a couple of years, and then I partnered with him opening my first office in Covington. And then 3-4 months after opening the office,
9/11.
I got the deployment notice. Like, we're going to Iraq. I'm like, I just started a business. And they're like, sorry?
Yeah.
No, don't work that way.
Yeah.
Too fucking bad.
Too
dude.
bad.
Get your bags.
Yeah,
dude.
we're going.
You're our ride. You're our ride.
I recruited a friend to come in and work in the office, and he hung in there as long as he could, but he didn't like my ex-partner, so he wound up bugging out.
Yeah.
But I spent all of 2004 in Iraq. Get there a little early, end of 2003, 2004, through Fort Polk, and then Iraq, and then came back beginning of 2005. But at the time, my partner had closed the business down right before I got home, which was a blessing in disguise. But
So what kind of...
Then I think Katrina happens, right?
yeah.
Well, 2000 you came back. 01, 9/11 hits, right? Did you have to do any... Did you deploy for 9/11?
Dude, I was on duty.
You were on duty.
I was on duty that day. And I don't know if you guys know, but Jesus, of course I forget the acronym. One of the largest, it is, I think it's the Special Forces headquarters is outside of Atlanta. SOCOM?
That's in Tampa.
Okay. Something along those lines. Anyway, it's a big target. And I'm in flight planning. And we're getting the bird ready, but we're planning the flight. We're just going on a training mission. And one of the guys goes, something just hit one of the Trade Center. And we're like, what? And of course, we always had, one of the news channels on live in there. And of course, you see this smoking hole, and it's a clear blue day. And as a pilot, I'm going, somebody committed suicide. That doesn't happen on accident.
Yeah.
Not on a clear blue day. And it didn't look like a huge hole,
Yeah.
The first one. So, and we're watching live TV when the second one comes smoking into the building. And it was just shocking to watch it live.
I was a sophomore in high school when it happened, but I could only imagine you going through all of your military training, being a pilot, just like sitting there watching it, being like, y'all ready to go? Like,
It was surreal. And here's the crazy part. This is a guard unit.
Yeah.
So you're thinking like, what are we going to do, right? Well, within a minute of shock and awe, one of the old chiefs is like, starts barking orders. And the next thing I know, We're unloading our Blackhawk, taking all the seats out, and rolls up this blacked out, macked out SUV, pulling this macked out trailer. And I'm like, who are these guys? And they start unloading shit into our aircraft. So all these contingency plans were already in place.
Yeah.
And the guy starts briefing me. He's like, sir, if Atlanta gets hit or the base gets hit, you're going to fly us upwind. We're going to walk downwind, and we're going to check the area for contamination, NBC, all that fun stuff.
Wow.
And I was like, what's happening?
What is going on?
Like
right
the
now?
Pentagon just got hit. What? So who knows what's next? But
Right.
you just don't forget days like that.
No.
That's right.
No. All right. So, with your resume, with all of the things that you had gone through from 16 to 27, you're now a helicopter pilot. My question is what advice, what do you have to offer to somebody that's either looking to get into the military, looking to get out of the military? How do you take all of that knowledge and all of that experience that you have and then move it into business as you have done?
Well, moving it into business to me is kind of a whole topic in and of itself. But, for someone who just wants to get in the military, maybe using it like I did as an option to pay for college or hey, it's a plan B and I'm not sure what I want to do. And my personal belief is we ought to do like Israel. Everybody ought to serve in some form or fashion, whether it's with the military, Red Cross or something. Our young people need to learn service. They need to learn how to work with others and how to communicate and play by the rule book and the whole thing.
Others before themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've definitely become a selfish society. And I think something like that, it's, to me, be proactive rather than reactive. Sure. And, God forbid we get attacked or something, and then you have to do it. But at that point, you're scrambling, you know? So,
Right.
Well, you figure, and a lot of people even go to law school to figure out what they're going to do. And like all you're doing is paying for school and sitting in a classroom. And it's like, learn a trade and a skill while you're figuring out what you want to do.
And get paid for it at the same time.
Yeah.
And that's why the military absolutely makes sense. And we have a young man just was working for me, and he just left to go in the Marine Corps. But a lot of kids don't realize what their options are going into the military. So you don't have to go full-time. If you want to go full-time, okay, good on you. You're going to have a commitment, whatever that is. And you need to know that when you sign on the dotted line, your ass is theirs. So if you don't like it, too bad, so sad.
Too bad.
Now, you have some negotiating power, but your negotiating power all starts before you sign on the dotted line. And that's why I was able to get in aviation. I wouldn't sign on the dotted line unless I got that slot. So we finally had to go interview at the aviation unit, and they meet me and my dad, and they're like, all right, well, we're going to pencil you in right here. We're going to give you a secondary slot. I'm like, okay, now I'll sign. But I didn't want to be a grunt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so many things for us to talk about.
Oh, I know. We could sit here all day.
Seriously. So I want to give us enough time, though, to talk about your business, because there's a lot there, and I know that there's a lot of value for the listeners about your business. But I also want to hit on, the really valuable lessons that you learned in your career. Going from 16 years old to 27-year-old pilot, to watching the Twin Towers get hit, to being on that front line, basically, there is so much value and knowledge there from your perspective. How do you share that now? Like, what do you have? I guess, there's just so many lessons there.
Yeah,
I would imagine.
I gotcha.
What would be, one
How do
or
you apply that to
two
your business? Yeah.
Well,
major lessons from your career that you now every day, still to this day, you apply in your practice?
I was always pretty quiet, a little more of a reserved soul, if you will. But I learned that you have to advocate for yourself. I decided I wanted to go fly, and, getting out there and going, Curtis, come over here, sweep the floor. I'm like, That ain't what I signed up for, but yes, sir.
Right.
What do I need to do to get to the next step? What do I need to do to get to the next level? And I asked those questions. So I looked for the guys that were on that path. And I think that's one of the bigger lessons. Let's say you want to be a millionaire. You need to be talking to somebody that's making $10 million or talk to a billionaire if you want to be a millionaire, you know? So I would go, and that's in the military. That's what I did. I went to the first sergeant and I was like, hey, this is where I want to go. What do I need to do? What do you need to see from me? So I'm because one of the weaknesses that I saw in the military, and it happened to me coming, as a young officer, I'm a butter bar, and I get back to my first unit, and I'm waiting to go to flight school. So they put me in what was called the area support group, and you're going to be a maintenance guy. I'm like, oh, great. Okay. I'm on hold, waiting for a slot. And, that was another couple of years. But I'm walking around as a new lieutenant. No one gave me a job description. No one told me what to do. No, and out of frustration one day, I sat down and I cracked a book and I just started reading the book. Well, as soon as I did, the fucking colonel walked in. And he's like, what are you doing, Lieutenant? I was like, reading, sir. He didn't like that answer. Mm-hmm. He didn't want, I was like, so the lesson there was you got to be proactive. Don't wait for someone to tell you what to do. You have to go ask. You have to go find out. You have to advocate for yourself. If you're gonna wait for people to tell you what to do, you're gonna wait all day, and you're gonna wind up screwing yourself. So, it starts with setting your own goals and then developing your own path, and along the way, finding someone that can help mentor you along that path. So the first sergeant said, well, let's start by coming to work in an unwrinkly uniform, soldier. So press your shit. And I was like, okay. And shine your boots. Roger that. What's next? Give me a checklist. I can work with a checklist.
Start with the basics.
And that's how you get rid of these strings hanging off your uniform. You look like a dirtbag. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm 17, but thanks. Yeah. I got it now. Yeah. You don't know what you don't know.
Right.
So you have to actively seek out information, and you have to seek out that path, because no one's going to do it for you, and you're going to wind up being one of those persons that's like, well, it didn't work for me. Everybody was mean to me. I could have easily taken that path.
Sure.
So have you been able to now take that lesson, right, of what you just described of, being proactive and having a plan and doing the work? How do you apply that now for your employees that you have two chiropractor offices, you have a full staff. How do you set your team up now for success?
By being that role model and setting up a mentorship program inside of my own house, and helping them become better people, because I've been fortunate enough to be on a lot of teams in my life, whether it was through sports. I played sports all my life, football, baseball, and then I got in college and it never stopped. And when I finished playing rugby at 35 years old, I started doing triathlons, and I've always done some physical activity. But being on all of these teams, and it's one of the reasons why I told my kids, you're going to be on a team or you can work. That's your choice, but you're going to pick one. Mm-hmm. My first two kids picked work, which kind of surprised me. My youngest he's playing rugby at St. Paul's, and I'm coaching him there, which is kind of
awesome.
cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But what does sports teach you? They teach you leadership and communication and how to work with a team. And so I've been a part of so many good teams, and I've been on bad ones too. So I know what a bad team looks like, and I know what a good team looks like. And, I think of my best teams, and one of the best teams was when I was at Life University. Life was able to give me a scholarship because the school itself was founded by a guy who played football at Georgia Tech. His name was Sid Williams. Till he died, he was a pretty famous chiropractor for just starting a school and really promoting chiropractic throughout the United States after the AMA was spent decades trying to kill it, you know. And the guy took rugby as a platform to help promote the school. So even though I was in grad school, the school was paying for my tuition, but we were competing at the highest level in the United States at the time. It's what became Major League Rugby. The professional league is what I was in essence playing in. It was called the Super League. We just didn't get paid to play. we were playing because we just loved it.
They won't back pay you for that?
Yeah. Not how it works.
No.
So it's interesting. A couple of things you said there. We've talked to you talked about how you treat your employees and your team at home, and we had a conversation with a Navy SEAL, and we described leadership as leadership equals love. And he said it took a long time for him to get to that definition. And he said if you truly care about the people that you're that are working for you, or that you're leading, then you're going to treat them in a specific way. You're going to put them first. You're going to love them, have hard conversations, support them when they need to be supported. And I think that was kind of what you were alluding to when you're talking about supporting the people that are around you. But I see so many people that, even lawyers out of law school or people that are in college who are trying to figure out what their job is, and they sit and wait for something to come to them.
Right. Don't wait.
I when my first year out of law school, I got the real estate treatise and I laid it next to my bed, and every night I would just read 2 pages out of that book. And I was reading stuff that I would never apply in, just the most attenuated legal concepts, but it was just, I was doing something to try to gain some sort of momentum in the right direction, right? And you just got to take some action to figure out what it is. I think it's
you
great.
have to invest in yourself.
Yeah.
You have to. If you don't, you're getting left behind. And if you look at some of the most famous businessmen out there, take Ray Kroc, the guy who started McDonald's, for example. I think he was like 55 when he became successful, and that story just repeats itself. And I'm in my 50s, but I would tell you I've become more of a student with all the school I've been through in the last 5 years than I have in the rest of my life. I've spent more time devoted to making myself and the others around me better. And when you do that, it's a military term. It's a force multiplier. But I 100% agree with what you said and that Navy SEAL said, is it does equal love, and it's unconditional love. I've just had a nurse practitioner quit on me after spending $4,000 to get her credentialed, thousands and thousands of dollars to get her trained. And, it's just, it doesn't mean, shit happens, and people are going to decide what's best for them and their family. And at the end of the day, I could get upset about it. I could get mad at her, but what does that do? It just burns a bridge. And the more bridges you have burned, the less bridges you have to cross. And who knows what that could possibly develop in the future. If I say, look, I get it, and hey, go do your thing, maybe at some point the chapter, the page could turn for her, and maybe she comes back, But going back to building the team, being on some really bad teams, what I experienced was guys bitching and moaning and groaning. And I watched in the military, it was one of the reasons I didn't want to be in corporate, because I watched people step on others to move up. I watched one lieutenant colonel step on another lieutenant colonel's, become political because he wanted the next rank up, or the major or the captain or whatever it was. And, what you put out there, you get back. Karma's a real thing. And from a leadership perspective, if you're going to put that out there, time's going to be tough for you. But if you really focus on, okay, this guy's complaining all the time, maybe he's not the right person for the team. But you keep looking for the right people, and you just build that, and you build the environment from the inside out. but you have to set the tone, especially if you're the leader.
Yeah.
So that's my biggest mantra to my team and anybody that wants to be a leader in my group is the leader set the tone.
So let's talk about your company. Let's talk about your business and the environment that you've built, right? All American Medical is the name of your company. You provide chiropractic and alternative holistic medicine to people that are going through, that are suffering with whatever it is that they're dealing with. And so you've been able to put together a really talented group of people that work for you and that work with you. How do you maintain that? You've been doing it for a long time, right? You had 4 or 5 offices at one time. You now have 2. You've been able to manage. You've learned some lessons along the way in your business. How do you maintain that high level of patient care, a high level of leadership in an organization like that?
Well, as the leader, you have to set the standard. If you don't set the standard, it's going to be set by someone else. Mm-hmm. And most of the time, that person's not going to set it as high as you would like it.
Do you think that stems from your officer background?
Ooh, that's a tough one because I believe personally, one of the things my dad taught me was a real strong work ethic from an early age. I watched him work hard. He was a teacher and a coach, and in the off season, the summertime, he had a second job. He worked as an electrician's assistant, and he would bring me along and go run that wire, boy.
Yeah.
Hot ass at it.
Mm-hmm. Free labor.
Yeah, exactly. And he would tell me it wasn't free. You're getting to eat and you got a bed to sleep in.
It's a fact.
It's facts.
You got a roof over your head.
It's facts.
Better be blessed, boy. I'm like, yes, sir.
Yeah, that's right.
So, sorry, I got a little distracted on that one.
That's right.
What was the original question?
How do you maintain that level of leadership from your officer position in the military? And how did you bring that into your organization? And how do you keep that?
Yeah, lead from the front, set the standard. And one of the lessons I learned is you can't let go. And what I mean by that is you can't disconnect. If you disconnect, and you'll see this happen historically in business, the person's doing well and, they made it, so to speak, right? Mm-hmm. And the next thing you know, the business starts going down the tube. So you can't relax. To me, it's more about you set a goal, and whether you reach it or not, let's say you do, well, what's next? Mm-hmm. Set the next goal. Okay. You need to revisit your goals, I would say on a daily basis, but at least more frequently, weekly, monthly. And then when you go back and visit them, do you have a year goal? Do you have a 3-year goal or a 5 to 10 year goal? In my opinion, you should have all 3. I've read a lot. I've studied a lot. I spent a lot of time and money, because I got out of school, and one thing they don't teach you in med school or chiropractic college is how to run a business. Mm-hmm. So I got involved. I used consultants. I said I didn't have a mentor. Not entirely true, because I did find mentors inside of these master's programs or things like that. And then sometimes it happens, you kind of reach a peak and on to the next chapter. Find someone else. Find someone who can help take you to the next level, wherever you are. And always looking for someone who's where you want to be.
Yeah. So the 3, 5, 10-year goals that you have, do you feel as though that is what allows your business and your employees to continue to stay focused and motivated because they know what the vision is for your company?
Yes. And, on that note, one of the books that I came across in the last few years, and I got to say that I have a lot of experience. The military, going to basic training in AIT. What's a TM, a technical manual? Well, the manual for working on a Huey helicopter is like this thick. But if you can actually read, you could take the helicopter apart and put it back together, and it'll tell you how to take the engine apart. It's like you take this wrench, put it on that, bolt right there, turn it this direction. It's that detailed step by step.
Yeah.
Org boards, org charts, organizational pieces, managerial pieces, all of those pieces. But the military a lot of times didn't take it to the next level. Well, a lot of smart business people over the years have. You know, when I talked about disconnecting from your position, like let's say you're the GM, okay? You shouldn't leave that GM post and list that job description's written up and it's handed to a person who knows and is trained how to do that job. That's part of what I mean when you can't disconnect.
Yeah.
You have to fill that position, or you will wind up with a hole, and you're going to have to fill it anyway.
100%.
So you might as well front load the work and write up the job description, write up all the details that person needs to know to do the job. And whether it's marketing, management, or what have you, I literally spent about 15 years. I would go to at least 3 to 4 seminars every year to learn executive level management. Mm-hmm. And I learned a lot of things along the way. But one of the books I came across recently is called Traction by Gino Wickman. And what these guys did was they put all of those things that I learned over the years into one book. And what you need to run a business is an operating system. Mm-hmm. I knew that. I was already doing it. I was doing monthly meetings, weekly meetings, and I was doing it just because I felt like it was necessary, where I was trained, and it made sense, right? Well, what these guys did is they put all of that into a book, and they call it EOS. And EOS stands for Entrepreneurial Operating System. You have to run a business off of a system. Businesses, 95% of them fail in the first 5 years. 97% fail within 10 years. You know, why is that? Well, it's because people don't know. You know, they're doing a job because they have a passion. Mm-hmm. And that's great. But that's not always going to get you a paycheck. Mm-hmm. Or pay the bills or the expenses or manage people. And people are the toughest part.
Mm-hmm. So we operate all of our systems off EOS. I've done it. We've done it for the last 2 years. Mm-hmm. And I completely agree with you. Most businesses fail because there's somebody who's passionate and they have a strong work ethic and they grow and they do really well at what they do. They bring on 1 or 2 employees. They leverage them out. They don't meet with them consistently. They don't have an operating system. They grow a little bit more. They bring on 2 more employees. And now they've got 4 people that they're managing. They don't hold them accountable the right way. They don't know how to hold them accountable. They don't track the numbers in the systems. And now they're spending time trying to deal with these people who aren't operating at the level that they want, and they get distracted from doing their job the right way.
Yeah, there's a very popular book. I'm sure you guys have heard of it. It's called The E-Myth. Mm-hmm. You know, and the E-Myth, the whole story is about this lady who she's a baker. She's got the best pies, and everybody wants her pies, and they're lined up to get her pies. But she can't grow her business because she's baking pies. She's doing it. She's in it.
She's a technician.
And that's kind of what I've learned over the years to term phase one. Phase one is you're in the job and you're doing it. You know, Dom would be like, you have to teach the yoga classes, you know. Phase 2 is where you're, instead of working in the business, you're working on the business. And in order for a business to expand, it's the 80-20 rule. You need to be spending 80% of your time doing the most productive 20%. What is that? What's your biggest ROI, your return on investment? You know, so for me, that's one of the reasons I went to get a fellowship in stem cell therapy, is because my biggest ROI is regenerative medicine. Mm-hmm. And people need to know that stem cells can heal tissue.
Yeah.
But I've got a problem with my knee or my shoulder. I need to go see the orthopedic doc. Okay, well, I understand, but you're going to a surgeon first. You know, the standard of care from a healthcare point of view is conservative healthcare first. But that's not what we've been taught, you know. And the other side of it is, you know, you're bumping up against the medical industry and the insurance industry and the pharmaceutical industry. And you want to know why you can't get your own stem cells put back in your own joint.
Yeah.
You know, that's a whole nother topic. I'll come back for that one, fellas.
So I want to go back to EOS. So Hey, do you actually have an implementer come implement EOS, or
I
you
did
self,
not.
you
I
self-implemented?
self-implemented after reading the book a few times. And let me give a footnote on this. I want to encourage anybody that's listening, anybody that's interested in getting into business, invest in yourself, invest in learning. They say knowledge is power. It really is. And, all the years I spent in school, when you add up the time, it's kind of crazy. I had good teachers, bad teachers, but I've learned the most. They don't call it practice for nothing, practicing, doing it. But along the way, you can also work on yourself. And one of the skills I started using, I wish I would have learned this a lot sooner, is Audible. I can listen to a book 10 times faster than I can reading it. I read at the pace that I talk. I can speed read, but I don't like doing that. And it still is twice as long or worse than that. So what I learned recently or more recently is I'll listen to the books that I'm interested in. And don't just listen once. Do you get that material the first time you listen to it? No. If you really need to know it, you need to think, look, maybe I need to listen to it 10 times. It is what it is, whatever it is. If it's 5, if it's 6, if it's 8, you need to listen till you get it. And once you get it, then you can apply it. So that was one lesson. But then if there was a book like EOS where I really wanted to use the material inside of it, then I would buy the hard copy. I would go through and highlight the points that I wanted to use. The advantage that I had was my executive level training. I was already familiar with all of the systems they talked about. These guys were genius and they put it all together in a format that was easy to understand. I was like, that was genius.
Talking about EOS, or you talking about?
I'm talking about EOS.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the book Traction.
Which is like, and we talk about it a lot because we help businesses implement operating systems at Arena, and we tell her that EOS is brilliant because it just puts it all in a concise, common language definitions and terms so everybody knows they're on the same page.
Dude, I wish somebody would have told me about that book 10 years ago, 15 years ago. I would have saved myself a lot of pain.
Yeah.
And I've been through a lot of it. I've had doctors that, thought it was okay to drink at work. I've had doctors, several of them, that thought it was okay to try to start their own business through my business, taking patients and putting them elsewhere, you name it. And that's why I say dealing with people is the toughest part. But when you become better at recognizing what you want from a leadership perspective, and that's one of the cool things that's about EOS too. I always knew about core values, but to take the steps to actually put your own core values in place and build that with your own leadership team, and then you actually hire and fire based upon your core values. So I'll give you an example. One of our core values, we have 7 of them, is integrity. Okay, well, what does that mean? We define it. Integrity means doing the right thing, even when no one's looking. One of our core values is doing what is best for the patient. And it comes with 3 bullet points. Is it ethical? Is it compliant? And then is it profitable? Because we can't help someone if we can't pay our freaking bills.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you got to hit those marks. But when you put those kind of things in place and then you live by them, and that's the part in the book we're talking about, a VTO. Vision Traction Organizer, but it's putting your vision, it's saying who you are and what you're about, and then you go live that. Things start to fall in place.
Tell people all the time, they ask me my opinion on what they should do. It's like, what are your values? How do you filter that decision through your set of values?
There's so many people have never even thought about that before.
Or
you don't know what you don't know.
Or they'll interpret, they throw a bunch of words at the wall, and they don't actually define them what they mean to them. Because leadership to me may be something different to you and different to Dom. Same with integrity, same with teamwork. You have to actually define that term so that people understand what you mean by the word teamwork, and so that they can live up to that standard. Or ultimately, and even better, decide that I don't relate to that value like you do. I'm not a good fit. I'm going to go do something else.
Let me speak on one point that follows up that book, Traction. The follow-on book to it is called Rocket Fuel. And Rocket Fuel is about a visionary integrator, which in an org chart, it's the 2 people at the top. The visionary, generally speaking, is usually the owner, but it's a person who thinks about the future, that has the ideas and knows where the company wants to go, where the integrator is the person that really makes it happen. So, I have personally been looking for an integrator for a couple of years now, and I went through a few people and they weren't the right fit, but I recently found a guy that I was kind of, he came in as a patient, and day one I'm interviewing him as a patient, but it turned into a job interview. I'm like, I really like this guy. And a year and a half later, it turns out it worked out. And he's been working with me for a couple months now, and it's going great. When you have the right people in place, it's that yin and yang. You need to understand that concept. And what I mean is, as a leader, when people think of leaders, they think of this person that's standing up front and is an authoritarian and is willing to talk in front of a crowd. Not everybody's built that way. But I've seen leaders, good leaders that could get shit done, that were introverts, that didn't want to get in front of people and talk, but were really smart people.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you happen to be one of those people, you need to find that other person who can match you and can run the plays that you're not comfortable with running, if that makes sense.
I always describe it as the visionary is looking forward while the integrator is turned around, making sure that all the pieces are in place, and my integrator allows me to run as fast as I can. Because if my integrator wasn't there, I wouldn't be able to do all the things that I'm doing and be able to sprint, because I'd constantly having to check my six to make sure that things are getting done.
Yep.
And she is not completely yin to my yang, but we have the same driven high D personality, but our secondary traits are very relationship oriented, which is me, and hers is very compliant oriented, which is her. So we both like setting high goals. She likes to make sure that all the pieces are in place. I just like going as fast as I can to accomplish it. And that balance, along with the other people we have on our team that are like processes and following them, allows us to run. So I agree with you wholeheartedly. EOS or some sort of operating system is the key to accomplishing your goal and scaling. You'll accomplish some goals without it. You won't get to where you ultimately want to go without it.
No, I wish I would have read that book 20 years ago. It wasn't written 20 years ago, though.
Yeah, but 20 years from now, you'll have 20 years of experience with EOS under your belt, and you'll be sprinting and running. And glad that you read it when you read it.
What do they say? Hindsight
2020. Yeah,
right.
For sure.
Right. So, here's a question. How can this podcast now, sitting here today, help you in your business?
What's your goals? Who are you looking to get in front of? What do you have going on next?
Well, COVID crushed me. Crushed me as a business. But life's like that. It's like a roller coaster. And to me, it's really how you respond when you're down. Dom mentioned I grew the business to 4. I was opening a 5th clinic, and I'm kind of like you. I'm sprinting, and you can outpace the people behind you. So you need to be careful of that. If you happen to be one of those types of people, you can push people too hard, and I know that I can have a tendency to do that, and that's another reason to have that other person in place. They can help. Mitigate that.
100%.
So, it happened really fast. I mean, I came back from Iraq, and, I went from 0 to 200 patients a week in under a year. I found this one guy. He became a right-hand man, and was opening another clinic, and he listened to everything I did and did it to the T. And then he recruited another guy to come in behind him, his friend, and that guy was kind of on the mark as well. And we opened a 3rd clinic, but it turned out that second guy had a dark spot in his heart, and he undermined the organization, and I didn't know it. I mean, this was 4.5 years into a relationship. I'm going over to his house. They're coming over to ours. We're going to dinner. We're friends. But it turned out that he was someone else, and the relationships are really critical, because if those pieces aren't in place, it can lead to a crash. And that's what happened. My business, in essence, crashed when this guy did what he did. So I'm in the recovery process from that when COVID hits, so it's like getting kicked in the teeth twice.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel good. But what are you going to do? The worst thing I ever did was feel sorry for myself and let it get me down. And when that stuff happened, even though it hurt really bad, the lesson was that you have to pick yourself up. And the quicker you do that and you get back on your feet and the quicker you get moving forward is the quicker you get moving forward. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you're just stagnating in your own self-pity, which is a waste of time. So you have to move. And, the energy that you put out there, you get back. And if you want to sit there and feel sorry for yourself, guess how things are going to feel. Yeah. But if you're like, hey, I'm going to work on me and I'm going to get going in the right direction and it's 1 foot at a time and you just keep working and working and working and working on you and creating a positive environment and an attitude and reflecting that on the people around you, you're going to find that energy is going to grow. Yeah. The older I get, the more I learn that it is about energy. It's the energy that you put out there. You'll get back. Mm-hmm.
So how many locations do you have right now?
Two.
Where are they
but
at?
To speak on the future, it's really in the medical world. If you got a knee problem or shoulder problem, I'm going to go to the physical therapist. Well, what I see is physical therapists will a lot of times just focus on strengthening, where chiropractors will just focus on the spine. We'll use the spine as an example. Every vertebrae has 9 ligaments, tendons, and muscles that are attached. You have to work on the whole thing together. And if let's say you were a contractor, for example, and we were talking about this earlier, why would you build a house with just a hammer? Mm-hmm. Why wouldn't you use all of the best tools? So that's basically what I've done is I've taken physical therapy, chiropractic, orthopedic massage, holistic medical care. So for joint injections and trigger point injections, we'll use natural anti-inflammatories instead of steroids. All the studies are there to show that steroids do nothing but break down your joint. My orthopedic surgeon friends will tell you it's like putting sandpaper in a joint. It's been around since the 1930s, and we're still using it today. You telling me there's nothing better? Yeah. Really? There is. There's things that are a lot better. And that's where stem cell therapy can come into play, PRP. There's other regenerative medicine tools, and these things work. Our success rate, when someone comes in and they're willing to do the work and do what we recommend, our success rate's better than 90%.
So what do you mean by putting in the work?
Well, I'll use myself as an example. I tore my labrum and my rotator cuff in 2004. That happened in Iraq. I did it again in 2011, had an MRI there. It was worse. I was recommended for surgery again, and I chose regenerative medicine and rehab, and I was able to avoid surgery in all this time. 2 years ago, I hurt my shoulder again in the gym, made it worse again, and I was miserable. Couldn't sleep, was waking up at least 6 to a dozen times every night. Anytime I moved, it hurt. I couldn't raise my arm above 90 degrees. And I went to talk to an orthopedic friend of mine. We need to do surgery. I'm like, well, what's the long-term plan? Because I'm not your average 50-something here. I like to mountain bike. I want to work out. Well, 10 years from now, you're going to need a shoulder replacement. I'm like, I don't like that plan. So I went back to regenerative medicine. And within a week, I was pain-free, and I could raise my arm above my head. I did the rehab in line with that. And I'm as strong as I was 10 years ago. Wow. Today. And I'm talking upper body around my shoulder. So, and that goes back to part of my why as well. I have a brother that I don't talk to because he blew his knee out. He's had his knee replaced. He's 2 years younger than me. He's had his knee replaced 4 times. And along the way, he got addicted to opioids. He was in the restaurant business. You combine that with drinking, and it changes you. It changes you up here. He's a different person. And I would, I bet you almost every person has had a family member that's been touched by that. The U.S. spends more money on healthcare than all other countries in the world, but our healthcare ranks at the bottom. Why is that? what we're doing is not working. So what I want to do is I want to be part of the change. If you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. And our healthcare, whether you realize it or not, you live in one of the sickest places on the planet. Number one and number two cause of death. Number one, heart disease. Number two, cancer. Okay? Well, just take heart disease, for example. 50%. First symptom, heart attack. First symptom.
Damn. Yeah.
So you live in one of the sickest countries, and Louisiana's number one. So I want to be part of the solution, and I want to offer people something that's different because the norm is not working.
Yeah.
So
So to answer your question from a business point of view, I want to get back on that model. I'm working on putting but it takes twice as long as you think. So for anyone that's listening from a business point of view, what you have in your mind, whether whatever you think it's going to take to grow to your business to a certain point, you can just double that.
Sure.
Maybe triple it. It's more work than you ever imagined. It takes more time and effort. And then how much are you putting into it? And are you putting the right pieces in place along the road?
Yeah.
So
where are you two locations at?
one's here in Covington, and then one right between Covington and Mandeville, and we have another one in Hammond.
Okay. Change real quick.
Yeah.
And you have a doctor over in Hammond, or do you?
Both. We have I have a medical director for both. I have chiros in both. I have nurse practitioners in both, and then staff, and so all of those pieces are in place. The next step for us is really opening a third office. I want to focus on that 20%, that top 20%, spend 80% of my time putting the systems in place and readying us for what you call scaling, growing to the next level. So our 3-year goal, which we're coming up on next year, will be to have a third clinic. And then I'm also exploring options for either franchise and or licensing or consulting, because I see so many businesses failing and along with healthcare.
Yeah.
And we've got the formula for both.
Well, that's good. I mean, you're on the right track because from a franchising and licensing perspective, unless you have your branding protected through IP and trademarking, and unless you have the processes that you can actually pass on to people, they're not buying anything. So if you do things differently, or you're savvy enough to create a process, that's the first step for franchising. So you already
that's one of my things for this year to really work on is process documentation, because after COVID we changed the way we did a lot of things, procedures, and I didn't realize it at the time, but I had to rewrite my policy manual, my procedures book, and it takes time to put all of those things into place. And the good news is technology today makes it a little bit easier. Whether you want to talk into a microphone or video it, all of those things are tools that you can use for process documentation. And EOS does a great job of outlining that. It doesn't need to be super complex. They'll typically say 5 to 7 main bullet points, and then you'll have 5 to 7 steps underneath that. But I would add, what's necessary to really understand that
100%
piece of work.
Yeah. Then the eMyth does a good job of helping you figure out how to document that kind of stuff too, which is the main point of the book.
eMyth's a good place to start.
I tell everybody that. Start with the eMyth, read the eMyth. Well, first of all, you got to understand your purpose and your why. Power of consistency.
Start with why, Simon said.
That one's good. Power of consistency is good. Then you need to do the eMyth so you can start documenting your process. Then you need to get into EOS so you can hold your processes accountable. That's usually the steps that I go through with people. I think you're spot on with that.
And as you get further along in the leadership part, that book, Rocket Fuel, to follow on to Traction, helps really people understand that visionary integrator relationship, because that is a key to scaling. Yeah. You got to have those pieces in place.
100%. And so how many clients can you service at each location?
Generally, with the staff that we have in place right now, we could see in the line of 250 patient visits a week.
And how are you at capacity?
No.
So you're
right
looking
now.
for more clients.
For sure.
Cool.
And we're doing physical medicine. So, for example, headaches. I'll ask patients, well, what do you how often do you get headaches? They're like, every day. I'm like, well, Do you think that's normal? Like, oh, I don't think so. But I mean, everybody's got headaches, right? No, I don't. And if I did, I would do something about it.
out, yeah.
Headaches are a symptom. Symptoms are your body's way of telling you something's wrong. But the problem is symptoms show up late. So go back to the heart disease example. At what point did that person have a heart attack? It was a 90+% blockage, probably close to 100% before that first symptom even showed up. Symptoms show up late. If you get cancer, the second leading cause of death, if it's 90% along the way, your odds of recovery are pretty good. But that's on the tail end or where symptoms start to show up.
Yeah.
So we have a tendency, healthcare, what does that mean? Care of your health. But the way we operate is we wait till we get sick. That's sick care.
Yeah.
What Western medicine, U.S. healthcare has become is not healthcare. It's disease management. It's symptom-based care. We have to flip the script. Healthcare means taking care of your health, and that means being proactive.
Preventative medicine.
Amen.
Preventative medicine.
Yeah.
That's what it's about.
Ice
Exactly.
baths, that's preventative medicine.
Ice baths, saunas,
Stretching.
meditation,
Stretching every day.
yoga.
You have three
lifting,
types
running.
of stress: physical, chemical, and emotional stress. And you need to address all three. And in our space, we easily address the physical and the chemical. I feel like a lot of time I address the emotional. And I've become pretty strong at it because you just hear a lot of problems. But
how do we educate people about that? Right? I mean, that seems like that would be a challenge for you and your business. It's, I need to go, my neck is hurting or my low back is hurting. I'm going to go see a chiropractor, get adjusted and be done. Well, that's the last sign, right? That means something's been going on prior to that pain showing up that is causing you to now have this pain. So how do you, as a doctor, I would imagine that's a challenge that you try to figure out is how do you educate people that?
It's a great question because using chiropractic as an example, a large majority of the chiropractors out there practice what I call relief care.
Yeah.
Relief care is get out of pain, and that's why they have so many patients. I just need to get adjusted. 80% of headaches, like we were talking about a minute ago, come from the neck. Studies show that. Okay, and that's one of the reasons why chiropractic works for headaches. But if you don't address the postural distortions, if you don't address the muscle spasms, the tech neck, and postural changes, muscle re-education, all of that stuff, you're going to just wind up with a problem again. So you're riding that roller coaster, and that roller coaster, get out of pain, go away, come back, get out of pain, go away, come back, is what we call relief care. My point of view was always like, if you were a patient of mine, you're back the fifth or sixth time with the same problem. Eventually, you're going to go, well, this shit ain't working.
Yeah.
So again, it comes to being part of the solution. And the answer to that is education. But we've got a big uphill battle. And the reason we have an uphill battle is because of the pharmaceutical industry. It's because of the AMA. And if you look at the history there, the AMA was bought by John Rockefeller back in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, and they gave millions to the medical schools. And what happened back then, half the students in medical school were studying holistic medicine. They took all of that away because they figured out that you could take a prescription medication and make it from petroleum products. And that's what John Rockefeller was. He was an oil magnate. Mm-hmm. And once he figured that out, he went after the medical industry, and he did it. But that's why our healthcare is such crap today, is because medicine has become take your medicine.
Yeah, I mean, yoga is the same way.
Yeah.
Yoga was a prescription-based formula. You would go to the doctor. The doctor would say, hey, go do these 5 postures, go outside in the sun, drink some water.
You get your vitamin D from the sun. You
got
to stay hydrated. Your muscles are 80% water.
And now that they were like, that's not what we want.
If you don't retrain those tissues, you're not fixing the problem. So we have to educate people, and that's one of the reasons why I was excited to come on here.
Well, it's interesting because, as a yoga instructor, as a yoga studio owner, my job is to teach the people in that room how to move their bodies. but not just how to move their bodies. My job is to teach them how to do it. And if I'm doing my job right, the goal is for them to now go out and be able to do it on their own. So really, my job is to lose clients versus gain clients, because if I'm doing my job right, I'm teaching them how to now do that on their own so they can go and do it at home.
Yeah, self-care.
Essentially, you're kind of doing the same thing where it's preventative medicine, where if you are learning the things that you're teaching them in your office,
we teach them self-care. We teach them how to do stretches.
You're essentially going to lose those patients.
My employees have T-shirts and sweatshirts they made because they've heard me say this so much. And on the front of the shirt, it says, "How often should you stretch?" And our patients will all tell you it's every day.
Every day.
You know, you have to train your body.
Yeah.
If you don't invest in yourself, you know, you're going to pay for it one day. But to use the headache, you know, as an example, again, I'm interviewing patients, and it's like, well, what do you do for it? Well, I take Tylenol. How often do you take it? Oh, every day.
3 times a day.
Golly.
It's not a multivitamin.
It's crazy.
And on the label, if you can see it, it says, don't take past 10 days. And guess what the number one cause of liver failure is, by the way?
Tylenol. It's the worst.
Wow.
But people don't know.
But you know what I heard?
And they think that's normal.
Too, is that today it wouldn't be approved through the FDA because it's so bad for you, but because it's already grandfathered in, that's why.
What's like
listed on our
alcohol?
shelves.
You know, if alcohol was invented today, they would go, "Why would you drink poison?"
Right.
That's stupid.
Crazy. It's crazy.
Because it's socially acceptable.
All right. Well, I don't want to keep you much longer than we have you, but I do want to wrap it up with some closing remarks and any last little bit of knowledge or value that you want to share with, you know, the people that are listening, the people that are getting out of the military, the business owners that are looking to hire military members, or just the people that are listening and want to know more on how they can follow you or find you or come and learn from you. How do you want to close this podcast out?
Oh, wow.
Put it all on you.
Yeah. What's your email, Dom?
Yeah, right.
Where's your locations at? You said in Hammond and St. Tammy. Where in Hammond can people find you?
Right off of the interstate, behind the mall there.
Cool.
You know, it's like you're
By the
heading
Target?
toward SLU. Yeah, you get off the interstate. Yeah, right behind the Target and IHOP and all that stuff.
And then what about over here in
Right
St. Tammy?
there. Right by Lakeview Hospital.
Okay.
Right in front of Avala.
And you have a website?
We do, allamericanmedical.net.
Gotcha.
It does a good job of talking about what we do in the physical medicine space. Our whole purpose is to help people naturally. So our medical staff, you know, we're not going to prescribe medications. If that's what you're looking for, you need to go somewhere else. But I would encourage anyone to, you know, think about that before they do.
Cool.
It leads people down a bad path.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Well, I enjoyed having you on here,
Yeah,
man.
thanks,
I've known you for a long time, and it's been cool to learn from you. You've been a mentor of mine for a long time, and to watch your business transform to what it was and to where it's going is really awesome to see. So thank you for being on the podcast with us today, and you know, we'll have you back on for round 2 whenever you want to come back, man.
Yep.
Ding, ding.
You want to close us out with our sponsors?
Yeah. You know, we're in Lettuce Media Studio, and you know, we talked Lettuce Media as our company. We with Jonah. And you met Jonah a second ago, shooting the content for us and editing it for us, and helping us educate our clients and our people that we're looking to do business with. Pro Dreams is a company out of Mandeville. They have sports memorabilia, and then a lot of the pictures you see in this room were given to us from Pro Dreams because they just wanted to support the podcast and us. And then the Arena Collective, we're a law firm. Teach people about operating systems like you talked about. Teach people how to set up their business from a legal standpoint. We do a lot of real estate transactions and estate planning and succession work in the Southeast Louisiana. So,
Yep.
And then tell us about Love More.
And then, we got Love More, downtown Covington. We're right above Coffee Rainy. We are a yoga and holistic wellness studio where you can come, you learn how to move your body, you learn how to connect with your breath, and something eventually is going to start happening up here, right, when you do that. And then Guardian Rescue, innovative training, or GRIT, executive coaching. We take executives, we take CEOs through a really detailed process and figure out where the obstacles are, and then figure out how can we formulate a plan or a process to overcome those obstacles. So And then All American Medical, man. We can't leave you out. You're one of our sponsors today. If you're looking for some chiropractic care, if you're looking for that holistic wellness route, Dr. Chip Curtis is here. He'd love to meet you, love to talk to you, and get you over to his office.
Yep.
So thanks for joining us today, man. Enjoyed it.
Yeah,
Appreciate it,
yeah.
fellas.
All right,
Appreciate
man.
your service, buddy. Thank you.
Talk to you soon.
My pleasure.